Hello and welcome to the Halloween special with CntrlVee.
It is I.
Yes. Okay. We're gonna be reading some real spooky stories, so you better sit back, relax, turn the light on, but then turn the light off, but then turn it back on. So it get a bit too
Might be for kids, but that doesn't mean it's not gonna scare your socks off.
Well said. We're gonna be kicking it off with a list, starting with the haunted ghost story. Let's get into it. CntrlVee, would you like to read the first one?
The Haunted Ghost is a scary story about a man who crashes his car on a lonely country road and comes home across a haunted house.
Ooh.
The man stumbled out of the smouldering car wreck. He couldn't remember what had happened, what had caused the car crash. He just knew that he needed to find help. His wife was still trapped in the crumpled vehicle. He could see a house not too far away, with the light still on, like a beacon in the darkness.
Oh.
So he stumbled towards it. His legs felt too weak to support him, but he trudged on through the field until he reached the front door of the old mansion. He banged with his fist on the wooden door and cried out for help in the lonely night. Eventually the door creaked open and a woman stood there, holding a candle, beckoning him to come inside. The woman's face was pale and her cheeks were hollow. Even though he was frightened, he stepped inside and shut the door behind him. "I was in a crash," he said. "I know."
Ooh, shit. Ooh, I just got a little...
"You saw it?" he asked. "I need to use your phone." "We have no phone," he said. "But my wife, she needs help. She's still in the car. I need to call an ambulance." "Nobody can help her," he said. "It is much too late now."
Oh no.
"Too late," he cried. "Wait, how do you know my name?" "You've been here before," she said. "Many times." The woman must be crazy, he thought to himself. "Just my luck." "You come here every night," she said. "Just my luck," he thought. "I've been in a horrible car accident, and the only person who can help is an insane woman in a creepy old house. Every night," he said. "Every night since the crash." He grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. "Don't you understand? I was in a car crash. My wife." The woman put her fingers to his lips and whispered, "Don't you understand, Richard? I am your wife." He just stared at her, dumbfounded. "Don't you recognize me?" she cried, as she grabbed his collars and drew him close. Her face crumbled and all the flesh fell away, revealing only a grinning skull.
Ooh.
Man screamed. "Don't you love me?" she shrieked. "Love me?"
Oh god.
The man pushed her away in horror and staggered backwards. He looked down at his hands and saw the flesh falling away, leaving only skeletal fingers. He put his hands to his face, but he had no face. His bony fingers
No!
against his skull. And he screamed and he screamed, and his screams grew fainter and fainter. As the first rays of the morning sun shone in through the broken windows of the abandoned mansion, the two ghosts gradually disappeared into nothingness. But they would meet again, the stupid pair, this husband, his wife, this haunted ghost. Night after night they would replay the same scene, each one haunting the other for all eternity. The end.
Whoa!
Tale.
I'm chilled down to my bones after that one. Oh my! What an absolute killer of a first one.
Alright, so would JLeej like to kick us off with Vampire in the Taxi?
I would like to do that. Give me 1 second. Ooh, okay. So the Vampire in the Taxi. This, I'm sure, is an old tale.
Oh, I can see from the image that it's going to be.
Oh, a real spooky tale. Vampire in the Taxi is a scary story about a taxi driver who picks up a weird passenger one dark and windy night. Oh, I nearly said a windy night. It was my first night driving a taxi. It was late and there were not a lot of people on the street. I was about to go home, but I was hailed by a man in a dark street. He wore a dark-colored coat, collars up, and his hat was pulled low over eyes, as if he didn't want anyone to see his face. Not suspicious. He got into the back of my cab, and I pulled off and started. Alright, yeah. Pulled off and started driving down the street. My passenger in back leaned forward and tapped me on the shoulder. I screamed and almost lost control of the car. Nearly hit a bus. Drove up on the curb and stopped just inches from a large plate glass window. I don't know why, I guess he spooked me. His touch was so cold and he smelled... he smelled real bad. Like something decaying, like a dead animal. For a few minutes everything was silent in the cab. Then, still shaking, I said, "I'm sorry, but you scared the daylights out of me." Gotta keep it PG-13. I stared at him in the rearview mirror. His head was a silhouette against the back window. I couldn't see his eyes, but a black shadowy shape where his face should be. Oh, just a black, okay. Just a black. My passenger apologized, saying that he didn't realize a tap on the shoulder could be so scary. No, I said. It's all my fault. This is my first day driving a taxi. For the last 25 years, I've driven a hearse or a horse?
I will look that up as you keep reading.
Okay. Thank you. Where was it you wanted to go? The man in back just said North Cemetery. I drove him there in silence. When we...
A vehicle for conveying the coffin at a funeral.
Oh.
Interesting.
I drove him there in silence. When we got there, he got out of the cab and told me to wait. And if you don't wait, you'll be sorry, he said. Well, I didn't feel very comfortable, but I wanted the money, so I waited. After a while, he came back, and strange as it may sound, he seemed to be wiping something from his hand. As he slouched down in the shadows of my back seat, the man just said, South Cemetery. So we drove. And when we got there, the same thing happened again. He told me to wait for him. I was feeling more and more uncomfortable, but I waited. I wondered what he could be doing in the cemetery so late at night. What business could he have there? He returned to the car, brushing something from his clothes. I didn't ask him any questions. He returned to the darkness of the back seat and seemed to be wiping something from his mouth. When he was done, he just said, East Cemetery. Although very frightened, I was determined to get the money. My curiosity began to get the better of me, and despite my fears, I was determined to see what he was doing. So this time, I followed him. I followed him into the dark cemetery? Okay. I tiptoed behind him, stepping softly through the long grass and the muck. I watched him as he walked silently among the headstones. Don't know about that. He seemed to be looking for one in particular. He came to a fresh grave, then fell to his knees and used his hands to scrape and dig at the earth until he got down to the coffin. I was barely breathing, afraid he would hear me. I was terrified, but I couldn't run away. My legs felt like dead weight. I was rooted to the spot. I saw him open the coffin lid, and as he bent over the coffin, I could see inside it, and I caught a glimpse of the sunk features of a fresh corpse lying in the open coffin. I was so terrified I couldn't move in darkness. Then the man stood up. Perhaps he heard me breathing. Maybe he heard the gravel crunch underneath my shoes. He came straight towards me, quickly, almost running, but it didn't seem like running. It was as if he was gliding fast and silent over the grass. In seconds, he was upon me, grasping my shirt and pulling my face close to his. I smelled his terrible decaying breath. I saw something dark and sticky dribbling from his mouth. I managed to stutter. Vampire! Yes! He screamed as he sank his fangs into my neck. The end.
I love this. Is a scary story for kids or scary story written by kids?
No. Scary story for adults, dude. This is frightening.
Oh, spooky. Oh, okay.
I don't know if I can do many more, dude. These are two. Ooh.
Well, I mean, the next one.
You're up for the next
one.
Joe is not a monster.
Okay, here we go.
Take it away.
Okay. Joe is not a monster. It's a scary story for kids written by R.L. Stein. It appeared in his horror story anthology, Beware! R.L. Stein picks his favorite scary stories.
Ooh.
That's one picture to live out.
Yeah.
Just a bit. Joe is not a monster. Believe me, I know Joe better than anybody. Joe is a sweet guy. He is a pussycat. Who would have had flee?
Okay.
How did the nasty rumors get started? I really don't know. Someone at Joe's school must have started them. Someone at Joe's school whispered to someone else that Joe was a monster, and the rumor spread. Now the whole school is against Joe. Kids are frightened by him. Kids laughed and point at him behind his back. The braver kids shout, "Hey monster," when Joe walks past. Then they laugh and hoot when they see Joe turn red. Someone wrote "monster" on Joe's locker. Someone tucked a wind-up toy, wind-up toy, monster in his backpack.
Oh no. Oh god.
Because of the ugly rumors, no one will hang out with Joe. Joe eats by himself in the corner of the lunchroom.
Aww.
No one will choose him for after-school soccer games. He has to stand and watch the games alone on the side of the field.
No way.
No one will dance with him at the school dances. No one even talks to him in the halls or in class. Dude, this guy sounds like me.
Yeah, no one can get a boogie on with Joe. Sad boy.
Yesterday, a big kid from the upper school punched Joe really hard in the chest and said, "Go away from here, monster." He cried all the way home. Let me tell you something about Joe. He is very hurt by these rumors. Joe has feelings, just like everyone else.
Really?
Hath not a Jew eyes, hath not a Joe eyes. Joe wants to have friends. He really wants people to like him. Joe is a nice guy. He is kind and generous. He has a great sense of humor. He can be a good friend. Joe didn't ask me to speak for him, but I'm speaking out anyway. I want to set things straight once and for all. Joe is not a monster. Not a monster. Not a monster. How do I know so much about Joe? Well, that question is easy to answer. No one is as close to Joe as I am. No one knows better Joe than I do. Because I am Joe's second head.
Huh.
Oh.
I can't say I saw that one coming.
Oh, dude, they said comments.
Oh.
Lol, the ending really surprised me. Definitely one of my favorites in this site. At least Joe is not alone, right?
Second head, well, Joe is a monster. Maybe a good, kind, sweet one, but he is like Abroy's Saint Devil who looked like a devil but works like a saint.
Ah, that's
Dude, that's a reference. Really. Oh my god! Hang on. Joe isn't a monster. Oh, I'm sorry. Having two heads is the most humane thing ever! Exclamation mark. Anyways, it's kind of sad that people judge others solely on appearance, including me. This should really stop. Is the second head visible to everyone? Question. Okay, what a tale.
What a tale.
Now that our cores have been shaken, it's time to move on to Sifty Sifty San. Sifty Sifty San is a funny, scary story for kids about a man named San who spends the night in an old haunted house in the woods. It is based on an old African American ghost tale that comes from Texas. I am very put off by that picture.
Yeah,
that is very off-putting.
that is a very interesting one.
I don't know what the... Like, he's so fucking weird. He looks like a predator.
Oh, he is a predator. He's like 40 years old, and poor old Sifty Sam, or whoever that is like fucking... Oh.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get that off my screen. Anyway, and ignoring these ads as well. Dating game, you always win. Charming singles are waiting.
This is why
Latin
ad
kill.
block. Sorry,
Nah, I gotta share this with the world, dude. There was once a great big two-story house about 10 miles from town. It was set way back from the roadside where it couldn't be seen. The house was sitting right on the edge of a lake and was surrounded by woods. There were rumors that it was haunted by a terrible ghost called Sifty Sifty San. Nobody had ever spent the night in the house because the ghost would always drive them away. Why would you be going to that house anyway? Okay.
Yeah.
The man that owned the old place wanted to rent it out. He was very anxious to prove that it wasn't haunted and offered a great big reward to anybody who could stay the night in the house all night. Finally, he came across a man named Sam who had just come to town and had a reputation for being able to deal with ghosts. When
What a reputation.
Good rep, plus rep, deals with ghosts. When the owner approached him, Sam struck a bargain. He said he would stay the night in the old haunted house if the owner gave him the reward money and bought him some food so he could cook himself some dinner. So the owner went down to the grocery store and bought Sam a big sack of potatoes and a slab of dry salted bacon. That evening, Sam threw his sack full of grub over his shoulder and set out for the haunted house. When he got there, Sam opened the door, walked in and started a fire in the fireplace so he could cook himself some dinner. Outside, a huge gust of wind shook the house and howled down the chimney. Sam shivered and threw another log on the fire. Just as dinner was almost cooked, Sam heard a faint cry coming from the far side of the lake. He was a little scared, so he went around the house making sure all the doors and windows were locked. Then he heard the cry again. This time it was louder and nearer. Ooh, that ghost better not tangle with me, he said to himself, because if he shows up around here, he's gonna be a goner. Hell yeah. No sooner than the words had left his mouth than Sam heard a sinister voice chanting, "I'm Sifty Sifty Sam. I'm here on the lake, but where is the... But where is the man?" Sam froze in place. And... wait a second. Wait. No, I thought I was about to be...
Baby.
No sooner... okay, my bad. No sooner than the words had left you... yeah, okay. Sam froze in place and listened. Yeah, no, I needed to be quiet. It's 1:30 and I just realized how loud I was.
Fair enough.
Sorry, viewers. Sam froze in place and listened. The wind picked up again, howling down the large chimney. "I am Sifty Sifty Sam," the sinister voice hissed. "I'm here on the shore and I'm coming for the man." Not the man, dude. When Sam heard this, he started to get really nervous. Palms were sweaty. He knew the ghost was talking about him. His armpits began to sweat. His eyes were shining like wet glass, and his knees were knocking together. Knees weak. Knocking together like a sledgehammer.
Sledgehammer?
What the fuck? "I'm Sifty Sifty Sam," the terrible howling voice called from the front of the house. "I'm here on the porch, and I can see the man." Sam stood by the window with a frying pan full of meat in one hand and a sack of potatoes in the other to ward off ghosts. He heard the front door burst open, and down the passageway came a mighty rush of cold air. "I'm Sifty Sifty Sam," a horrible, blood-chilling voice bellowed. "I'm here in the house, and I'm gonna kill the man." "Oh no, you ain't!" shouted Sam as he was ran off down the road with the frying pan full of meat and the sack of potatoes. "Because I'm already gone." Haha, this is rather funny. Lol.
What a spooky story that was.
Wow, it sends shivers down my spine, dude.
What the heck?
Oh my. Oh, there's plenty to go.
Well, stone giant.
Mm-hmm.
That picture is
Yeah.
one stone giant, that's for sure. The Stone Giant is a scary story for children. It is based on an old Native American legend. A version of this story appeared in the book Favorite Scary Stories of an American Children as Scunny Wundy and the Stone Giant. A long time ago, there was a young Native American boy called Scunny Wundy. His name meant cross the creek. He wasn't very big, and he wasn't very strong. Everybody in the village knew him because he was always playing practical jokes on people. Scunny Wundy always loved to boast about how brave he was. He would make up stories about all the brave things he claimed he had done, and all the brave things he had claimed he was going to do. The people in the village were tired of listening to his lies, and whenever he told one of his stories, they would roll their eyes in disbelief. Now in those days, there were many fearsome and terrible monsters that roamed the earth. There were men that could turn themselves into monstrous bears. There were enormous flying heads that could destroy whole villages.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Cromulons.
Oh, that's all I can preach after that. There were monsters hiding in the springs who grabbed careless travelers and dragged them to their deaths. And there were huge horned serpents living in the lakes. But the most frightening monsters of all were the stone.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that was...
The people in the village always stayed south of the river. They never went north, because that was where the stone giants were known to be. Stone giants were enormous creatures, as big as a mountain, with pointy heads and skin as hard as granite. They had fierce tempers, and worst of all, they loved the taste of human flesh. Just the thought of a stone giant was enough to send a chill down the spine of even the brooms.
Ooh.
One day, Scunny Wundy was walking along the river, skipping stones and paying no attention to where he was going. He walked and walked until he suddenly stopped, looked around and realized that he was very far from his village. Just then, Scunny Wundy heard a very loud, frightening noise that sounded like the beating of a gigantic drum and the roar of the wind in the midst of a hurricane. It came from across the river, just beyond the trees. Scunny Wundy crept closer, peered out from behind a tree, and saw a sight that almost stopped his heart.
Oh.
There, on the other side of the river, stood the biggest, ugliest, angriest stone giant that anyone had ever seen. He had pulled a giant pine tree up by the roots, and was beating it against making a noise like an enormous drum. As he pounded the ground, he roared out in a voice as loud as a hurricane. Scunny Wundy was terrified, and he was about to turn and run away. Turn around and slink away. Never mind. But then he thought about his village. If the stone giant discovered the village, it would go on a rather rampage, devouring everything in sight. His parents would be eaten, along with everyone he cared about. He knew he had to stay and face the monster. If he didn't, everyone would die. He needed time to think. How could he defeat such a monster? If he threw rocks at the stone giant, it would just catch them and chew them up like ripe berries. If he shot arrows at the stone giant, they would just bounce off his skin and snap like twigs. Just then, the stone giant turned and stared directly at him. Scunny Wundy cowered behind a tree and waited. I see a people, the stone giant roared. I likes peoples. I likes to eat peoples.
Oh no.
Scunny Wundy took a deep breath and stepped out from behind the tree. You don't want to eat me, he shouted. There's not very much of me. I'd be gone in one bite and you'd still be hungry. I am always hungry, roared the stone giant. You don't want to mess with me, shouted Scunny Wundy. I'm the bravest warrior in these parts, and I can destroy you. Have you heard of me? They call me Scunny Wundy. Skinny Wendy, the giant shone from the stone giant roared. I never hear of you. Never mind, Scunny Chundy roared.
What? Try again, Bucko.
Scunny Wundy shouted. Just come over here and fight me. Holding the tree in one hand like a club, the stone giant waded into the river. The water was deep, and when he was halfway across, he disappeared under the surface. As quick as a fox, Scunny Wundy ran upstream to where the river was shallow and quickly crossed over to the other side. Before long, the stone giant's head emerged from the water near the other side. He climbed up onto the bank where Scunny Wundy had been standing and looked around. Where you go? The stone giant roared. Here I am, shouted Scunny Wundy from the other side. I'm still waiting here for you. You must have gotten lost underwater. If you aren't afraid of me, come over here and fight me. The stone giant roared with anger and jumped into the river with a mighty splash. When the stone giant's head disappeared under the water, Scunny Wundy quickly ran upstream and crossed the other side of the river again.
Genius.
When the stone giant reached the other side, he climbed out of the water again and looked around. There was no sign of Scunny Wundy. Where'd you go again? He roared. I didn't go anywhere, shouted Scunny Wundy. I'm right here, where I've always been. You must not be too bright. This could go on all day. I'll tell you what. Why don't I challenge you to a contest instead? What contest? The stone giant asked. I challenge you to a stone skipping contest, shouted Scunny Wendy. We'll both skip a stone across the river, and whoever gets theirs to skip the most times is the winner. If you win, you can eat me, but if I win, you have to go north and never come back. The stone giant looked down at him and thought and thought and thought. Scunny Wundy became to worry that his plan might not work. The stone giant agreed. He scooped up a large boulder and hefted it in the palm of his hand. Then he hurled it out across the river. The boulder skipped on the surface of the water once, twice, 3 times. It gained speed as it went. By the time it reached the other side, it had skipped in the water 10 times. Scunny Wundy had to dodge out of the way as the boulder flew past, narrowly missing him. I win! The stone giant roared.
Guess it's over.
Not yet, shouted Scunny Wundy. Now it's my turn.
Not done yet.
He knew the stone giant's throw would be hard to beat. He looked all around on the bank of the river, searching for a nice flat stone that would be good for skipping. But there were none. Just then he spotted a little turtle sitting on the ground. It had pulled its head and feet into its shell, and looked just like a big rock. Scunny Wundy picked up the turtle and threw it out across the water. It skipped just like a big flat rock, once, twice, 3 times. Then the turtle put out its feet and began to kick its legs. It skipped 7, 8, 9 times. Then the turtle put out its arms and began to swim. It skipped 10, 11, 12 times. It swam all the way to the other side, then it climbed out the water and sat on the bank, looking like a big rock. I win, shouted Scunny Wundy. No!
No!
The stone giant. He was furious that he had lost. He spun around and punched a large rock, shattering it like an egg. The giant could not seem to contain his rage. Scunny Wundy wasn't taking any chances. He quickly turned and ran as fast as he could until he reached his home. For the rest of his life, Scunny Wundy told anybody who would listen the story of his encounter with the stone giant. Nobody ever believed.
Oh no.
What a tragic tale.
Lol Skinny Wundy, the giant roasted him.
Skinny Wendy. I am giant.
Spooky tale indeed.
Oh, indeed.
So what's with Cherry Tree?
What?
2 above Stone Giant. It's just no link.
Oh yeah.
I'm really feeling a broken finger right about now.
Broken finger indeed is what I feel.
Oh, ew. It's a scary story for kids about a horrible, gigantic witch with a razor-sharp fingertip who preys on the people who live in a small village in the woods. It's based on the Native American folktale called Spearfinger. Long ago in the woods, there was a witch named Broken Finger. All of the people in the area lived in fear of this evil witch. She was 40 feet tall. What the fuck? She was 40 feet tall and had great skin as rough and tough as a rock. Oh, she's a stone giant
Basically.
that no weapon could penetrate. She had one long razor-sharp finger that she used to kill people who strayed into her domain. The villagers were sick and tired of finding their husbands, wives, and children dead in the forests. Man, I'm really getting pissed off with all these kids, husbands, and wives dying in the forest. It's really grinding my gear, rustling my jimmies. They knew that these people had fallen victim to the dreaded Broken Finger. So sorry, why is it called the Broken Finger?
Don't know.
Maybe we'll find out. She would sneak up behind him and
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No. This is okay.
the fuck?
40 feet tall. Sneak behind someone.
Okay. Well, she would sneak up behind an unsuspecting villager who was innocently wandering in the woods. Then she would stab her finger through their back and yank out their liver, swallowing it in one go. Swallowing it in one gulp. More than anything, she loved to taste the flesh of young children. Many families had been left childless because the witch had murdered and eaten their beloved sons and daughters. Broken Finger, Broken Finger could transform itself into anything or anyone. Wait, this is busted. She needs a nerf, dude. You never knew if your friend or neighbor was a really Broken Finger in disguise until it was too late. Wait, it's not my baby, it's a 40-feet tall fucking witch. One evening, a messenger alerted the villagers, telling them that the Broken Finger was in the area and seemed to be heading straight for their village. They developed a plan to destroy the fearful witch once and for all. They dug a huge pit surrounding the village and... Sorry, how far away? She's 40 feet tall, and she's approaching the village. How much time do they have?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. They dug a huge pit surrounding the village and covered it with branches and leaves. They hoped that the witch would fall into the pit, whereupon they could stab her through the heart with long spears. No weapon could penetrate. What? No weapon could penetrate. They could stab her through the heart with long spears and kill her. Anyway, the whole village came together in order to put this plan to action. One little boy had trouble pulling his weight. His clumsiness made it difficult for him to dig, and his father told him to get out of the way. Feeling sorry for himself, he noticed a bird and... Aww. Wait a minute. What the Okay. His clumsiness made it difficult for him to dig, and his father told him to get out of the way. Feeling sorry for himself, he noticed a bird caught in a honeysuckle tree. In an act of kindness, he gently freed the bird, but it didn't fly away. Instead, it landed on the boy's shoulder. The bird thanked him for his kindness in return told him a secret about the Broken Finger. It told him that the village's plan was doomed to failure because the witch's heart was not located in her chest at all. It was in the tip of her razor-sharp... Huh? It was in the tip of her razor-sharp finger, of course! The little boy was so excited by this revelation that he ran off to tell his parents he would be the one who would save the entire village from the wrath of the Broken Finger. Before he could tell anyone about the witch's heart, he heard a horrible scream come from the front. Broken Finger was coming fast, gnashing her teeth and chopping down trees with her razor-sharp finger. Her eyes were wild with anger, and she was very hungry. As she approached the village, she walked right into the villager's trap and fell into the concealed pit. Lon Mao kept praying. The villagers rejoiced and threw rocks at her. What the fuck? They brought out their long spears and began stabbing in the chest, trying to pierce her heart, but to no avail. The witch would not die. She kept climbing up to the top of the pit and slashing at the men with her finger. Archers came out and fired arrows into her chest with their bows and arrows, but they still couldn't hurt her. Remembering what the bird had told him, the little boy ran to one of the archers. He told him to aim straight for the tip of the finger. The archer raised his bow and arrow, trusting this little boy. Okay. Aiming at the razor-sharp... trusting the little boy who's been told by a bird. Okay. Aiming at the razor-sharp fingertip and let his arrows fly. It soared through the air and sliced through the witch's fingertip, tearing into her heart. With a horrible scream, she collapsed and died in the pit. The people of the village celebrated her demise with singing and dancing. They raised the little boy and carried him on their shoulders, treating him like a hero. From that day on, all the people in that village made sure to listen when the little boy had something to say. Last time I
Yeah. It's an interesting one.
Can you read the top 2 comments?
Yeah, I'll do that. Birds can fly. Last time I checked, birds can't fly. The story about as scary as a Barbie.
Okay. Interesting comments, yeah. The story used to be called Longfinger. Wow, okay. Yeah.
Heart.
Yeah. You ready to read it?
I am very ready to read it. Heart Lake. It's a short, scary story about a young man who hires a boat and goes for an evening cruise on the lake where his father disappeared.
Oh no.
My mother had always warned me to keep away from Heart Lake. Years ago, my father disappeared under mysterious circumstances while on a fishing trip in the lake. The police dragged the deep, dark waters, but no trace of him was ever found. They told us he was presumed dead and that his body would soon surface. But it never did.
Lies.
I remember attending the funeral as a young boy. I recall overhearing the adults whispering to each other when they thought I was out of earshot. For years afterwards, there were rumors around the town about something supernatural that lurked in the darkest recesses of Heart Lake. As I grew older, I dismissed all the talk as simple superstition, but for some reason I became obsessed with the lake. I had an overpowering desire to visit the very place, which I'd always been warned to avoid. One summer evening, I set out with my fishing rod and cycled in the direction of Heart Lake. After travelling down narrow country roads and crossing fields, I eventually arrived at Heart Lake and was greeted with a sight that made me gasp with delight. Never in my life have I seen a body of water so clear and so still. Not even the tiniest of ripples disturbed its placid surface.
How delightful.
I was able to hire a boat and began rowing across the lake towards one of the many smaller. How could you hire a boat there?
Wait, what the
like, if it was like considered supernatural, who would? Whatever.
Beach.
Halfway to the island, the boat came to a sudden and abrupt stop. Puzzled, I kept rowing, but the boat refused to move. I peered into the water on both sides, but could see nothing that would stop the boat and hold it so fast. Suddenly, the boat began to move sideways, gliding silently along as if it was being towed by something underwater. Before I knew it, I heard a cracking sound and was horrified to see the wooden sides of the boat bending forward, as if they were being crushed. Water began to gush in and I became frantic, searching for something to use to bail it out. Then I saw it. Something reared up above the surface of the water. At first it looked like something floating, formless, lifeless blob. Then the thing swelled upwards till two bulging eyes came into view just above the water level.
Yeah, I was a bit confused when you said that.
The wooden boat popped, snapped under me, and just before it finally collapsed, I managed to dive sideways into the icy water of Heart Lake. Terror overcame me as I began swimming towards the shore as if my life depended on it. I had barely scrambled up on the bank when I heard the thing slithering out of the water behind me. Moving with amazing speed, the monster slid along the ground in pursuit. Something cold and slimy flowered over my foot and wrapped itself around my left leg. Then I lost my balance and felt myself being dragged slowly and relentlessly towards the water. I managed to twist my body around, only to see those horrid bulbous eyes glaring at me. The colossal shapeless blob seemed to flow along the ground, dragging me with it. My hands frantically searched for something to hang on to. Luckily, I managed to throw my arms around a small tree, locking my fingers together and hanging on for dear life. I looked down and saw the leg of my jeans disappearing in a bubbling mess. Screaming with terror, I felt an agonizing pain as the creature began to digest my pen.
Okay.
Try as I might, I couldn't jerk my leg free from its deathly embrace. Still clutching the tree with one hand, I managed to pull a small knife out of my pocket. Desperately, I began stabbing the slimy blob, but every time I plunged the knife into the beast, it sank out of sight on that shapeless mass of blubber, which closed oozingly over it.
No!
Against such a formidable foe, my weapon seemed ridiculously puny. The pain in my leg became unbearable, and I found myself groaning and screaming in agony. The thing was pulling with more and more force, and suddenly I heard a cracking sound. The small tree I was hanging onto snapped in half, and I was left holding the top of it as the creature dragged me towards the water. Just when I thought I was done for, I saw something which had previously escaped my notice. In the middle of the huge, bulbous mass of jelly, I could make out a small, throbbing, discolored globule about the size of a football.
Okay.
It throbbed and squirmed within the huge, shapeless monster as if it was the creature's heart. Whatever it was, it looked like a vital organ, and I decided that would have to be my target. With the knife in my right hand and the small tree in my left, I had less than a minute to save myself. With 3 or 4 quick strokes, I sharpened the tree into a rough spike. Taking careful aim, I drew my arm back as far as I dared and plunged the makeshift spear straight through that slimy mass into its throbbing heart. A terrific shudder ran all through that enormous body. Slowly its grip on me relaxed. I expected to see the blob sink beneath the water's surface, but instead it started to swell up like a balloon. I thought it was going to swallow me whole as the blubber engulfed me. I shut my eyes and prayed.
Okay.
Suddenly it exploded, showering me in a slimy, glistening substance. All that was left of the creature was a dripping mass of goo. Feeling myself free from that terrible embrace, I leaped to my feet and stumbled madly up a tangled trail that led away from the lake. As As I limped homewards, nursing my injured leg, I felt relief but also a strange sense of accomplishment. I realized that in that one night I had solved the mysteries of my father's disappearance and also managed to kill his murderer, a heart-leg monster.
Wow.
What a stunning tale.
Yep, a real thriller, I must say.
Bravery and something else.
Yes, definitely there was something else in there. Can't quite put my finger on what it was though. Wow. Well, that's a good finisher. Out of all the tales that we've heard, that's definitely the good one to close it up on.
That is a great one to close it up on, I'd say.
Well, I must say, CntrlVee, thank you for joining me on this spooky event.
Oh, no worries at JLeej, my brother.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Alright, boys and girls, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you enjoyed. If you didn't, well, screw you. Okay, keep it burly. Over and out.